You are listening to the IoT For All Media Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the IoT For All Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Chacon, and today's guest, we have Robby Hamblet, the CEO and co-founder of Teal Communications. Teal, for those of you who may be unfamiliar, is an IoT platform built to help device owners access cellular data credentials and network operators distribute their credentials without the limitations they faced in the past. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about the struggles in architecting a complete solution, why it's an issue, how it can be solved. We're going to talk about network connectivity and why oftentimes people are kind of just checking the box there, but really what you need to be thinking about when it comes to selecting the right connectivity. And then finally, we're going to talk about consumer eSIM. So this is more of a private LTE solution, how it's different, kind of how it compares, and kind of the benefits of it overall. So really hope you'll enjoy this episode. But before we get into it, if any of you out there are looking to enter the fast-growing and profitable IoT market, but don't know where to start, check out our sponsor, Leverage. Leverage's IoT solutions development platform provides everything you need to create turnkey IoT products that you can white label and resell under your own brand. To learn more, go to iotchangeseverything.com. That's iotchangeseverything.com. And without further ado, please enjoy this episode of the IoT For All podcast. Welcome, Robby. Well, I guess I should say welcome back to the IoT For All show. Thanks for being here again. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Always a pleasure. Yeah, it's great to have you. I know there's a lot of exciting things going on over at Teal. I wanted to find another opportunity for us to chat. And now that we're into video, I think it'd be great to to talk a little bit further from our last discussion. Could you start off, just probably some of our audience, maybe who the first time hearing from you would be great to kind of just give some insights into your background experience and just introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be on webcam. I remember last time it was just audio only, and the app had trouble with mics, so I can imagine this has made your life a lot easier. But
100%.
I hope the quality is transferring out to the actual podcast links.
So far, so good.
Yeah. So for people that don't know me, my name is Robby Hamblet. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Teal. My background was in eSIM engineering, so I worked on some very early connected car solutions for GM and for Daimler, and working with kind of what I would call the legacy eSIM platforms that are out there. Figured out pretty quickly the problem that I wanted to solve, which is a lot of eSIM gets deployed as like a bespoke configuration, specific and tailored to that one solution. It's very difficult for the operators. It's very difficult for the solutions to create these kind of walled gardens where eSIM really only exists for one benefit, and that's that single product. So Teal is trying to democratize access to these network credentials, make it easier for people to get the public network operators, but also get networks enrolled for private networks as well.
Fantastic. I'd love it if you could expand a little bit on the use cases that you all are kind of working on. I know you do a lot of work with the operator side, and there's some interesting things I know have been happening on your end. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the use cases and applications of your technology to kind of bring it full circle for our audience, just kind of get a sense of how it all fits together.
Yeah, I mean, eSIM is all about multi-network, and eSIM as a product, if it's delivered to just drive people through an MVNO core, it's not accomplishing that kind of goal that it was designed for, which is to deploy multi-radio, but also multi-core solutions. So getting devices onto multiple radio networks is something that a lot of roaming profiles have been able to do for a lot. So you can roam between different branded public networks, but then what data center are you using? How is the data actually exiting to the internet? So a lot of the solutions that we work with, they benefit solution first from eSIM. So they're
Sure.
Domestic users that are within one country and they want to access multiple data pathways within that one country, or they're deploying something globally and they want to be able to be a native user in the US and a native user in Spain. And so sometimes it's about switching people between packet gateways inside of one country. Other times it's about enabling access to networks they wouldn't get if they took an AT&T user here in the US and they brought it to Spain. They would be an AT&T user in Spain.
Gotcha. Okay. One of the things I think we've kind of you know what would be good is if you could just quickly give a high level on kind of what we spoke about last time. We talked about eSIM platforms, just to kind of catch our audience up from a context standpoint. Can you just describe what that kind of means and in the sense of IoT, just to make sure everybody's kind of following along there?
Yeah, so in cellular networks, there are authentication servers called like an HSS, and that is something that authenticates a user and says this user belongs to this network. And typically that's matched to the SIM card identity. It's just
Okay.
statically mapped, and you get like a regular plastic card or even an embedded SIM card that has these credentials just kind of
Hmm.
programmed in at the factory. With eSIM, it's about programmability, or at least it's supposed to be. So it's about changing the identity depending on whatever the solution provider requires. So whether that be switching between networks due to lack of coverage, or expanding performance, or avoiding like network EOLs, that's one thing.
Okay.
A large portion of our customer base are people that have been affected by 3G shutdowns and network transitions and mergers that knocked them off of the network and killed their prior credential into that network, which was delivered through kind of a static SIM card. But with eSIM, you can solve those problems. You can drive a lot more choice and freedom over what networks, both in terms of the radio network, but also the data path. That's the piece that a lot of people miss is there's a lot of ways to get onto AT&T's network. You're not always getting on through the native experience of an AT&T.
Gotcha. And so this is unrelated to any question that I anticipate asking you, but I wanted to bring it up because it's something that I know there's some confusion between, and I'd love it from your perspective. When we're talking about eSIM, how does there's their eSIM, and then there's the eUICC piece, right? So how are they separate? Just for our audience, so they can understand it. And do you see? I mean, I feel like eSIM is much more generally used to kind of encompass both pieces when they're talking about it. But how do you
Yeah.
view it from your side, because you're obviously working in day to day?
Yeah, to break things down, and I apologize if I used this joke on our previous podcast, but telco is an industry that has reused a lot of acronyms. Like M to M used to mean mobile to mobile, now it means machine to machine.
Right.
And it's like, gosh, that's such a fundamental acronym. eSIM itself suffers a little bit from that sort of thing, because you have eSIM meaning electronic SIM, then you have eSIM meaning embedded SIM, and most people, when they talk about it, they mean embedded SIM, so eUICC. But then you have plastic eUICCs, and
Okay.
those are eSIMs. They're programmable, but they're still like the same form factor as a regular UICC or universal integrated circuit card. So there's two flavors. There's M to M, meaning machine to machine eSIM, which is either plastic or embedded.
Okay.
And then there is the consumer eSIM flavor, and a lot of people just refer to that as eSIM because that's like the colloquial, like consumer-y term for it. They don't say eUICC; they say just it's an eSIM. There's an eSIM in my iPhone, right?
Gotcha.
And that is something that is controlled by the device owner. So it's it's GSMA chain. It's a pull mechanism for accessing credentials. So the phone requests them from the server. In the M2M industrial eUICC world, there's a platform that's managing them. So, I mean, both of those can be called a platform, right? Because Teal offers both an SMDP Plus, which is what's used for consumer eSIM. So our work with private networks is to make sure that if you enter a building that has a private LTE network, that you can scan a QR code and get access to that network. But our work with connected car solutions, that's to make sure that they can access public networks and program them from a platform or portal.
So talk to me a little bit more about the private LTE side of things. When you talk about there's the consumer element is kind of the way you're referring to it as on the eSIM as a solution. How does that compare? What is the difference? How does that work? That's relatively new to my area of understanding. So talk a little bit about how that all works and the value there.
Yeah, so there's even been some discussion about, and this is where it'll get super confusing even to people inside the industry. There's even been some discussion about using consumer eSIM models inside of IoT applications, right? Like you take the particle board that you have, or you take the module that you've acquired that's going to use cellular connectivity, and you
Okay.
scan a QR code or enter a URL to activate it, as opposed to like getting a SIM card that was produced at a factory and then using a platform to manage that.
Okay.
So that could even happen. But when Teal talks about consumer eSIM, we're not producing like a Mint Mobile or something where we're taking
Okay.
a public network and we're putting it in somebody's iPhone. It's not about the core MNOs. It's about driving network access and enrollment for private networks. So, we've done some work with Gen XCom, Salona, a whole bunch of folks in the private LTE space where they're trying to, even the Facebook team, they're trying to have a user access their network without needing or necessitating a physical touch point with that user of here's a SIM card. So somebody goes into a private network environment, which could be a campus. There's a lot of discussions about like what makes sense for private networks, because it's kind of a replacement for Wi-Fi. But stadiums, you'll see private LTE, campuses, office buildings, those sort of environments are all very applicable to private LTE. When you're a user, you go to that building, you scan a QR code, you tap an NFC tag, you download their app, you do something that then transfers the credentials from our platform into that phone. And so that credential only works within that private network.
And how this, I guess, to give our audience a perspective here, how big is the kind of private LTE space, and where are the biggest opportunities that you all are seeing on that side of things?
I think the CBRS Alliance, are you familiar with the CBRS Alliance?
Yeah, we've spoken about it before.
Yeah, so the all the spectrum that was basically freely allocated, that chunk of 3.5 gig band space is driving a lot of innovation, and there's a lot of business models being discovered. There are some people that think of private LTE as a way to do like split tunneling at the edge. If you look at the AWS Outpost functionality, and so it's not necessarily a replacement for Wi-Fi or a replacement for a public network. In that case, it's more of like a hybrid edge, a way to equip a warehouse with all of the split tunneling functionality and slicing of 5G, but in a smaller environment.
Gotcha.
With a lot, there are though a lot of companies, like if you look at Helium and Freedom Fi, shout out to Boris, if they're thinking about it as a way to disrupt the public networks and to do a peer-to-peer network, because it's private. It's code that people can maintain separate from what an MNO would deploy. So
Gotcha.
those access points are distributed to people, and then the network is enrolled in by people without needing to go to a retail store or something like that. But then there's also like the campuses and the like indigenous people's land. There's lots of credits and systems for people to deploy broadband solutions, and in those types of environments, stadiums, places where Wi-Fi has really failed to address broadband concerns. It's where private LTE is really getting.
I could see stadiums being a big piece. I wonder, like I know the Dallas Cowboys stadium with their connection with AT&T and focusing on building that entire thing to be very well connected, if they are utilizing private LTE. Do you have any idea there?
They have, yes, and they've used Teal to enroll devices on that.
Oh, wow.
In very limited use cases.
And
I don't think I can talk about which of our partners was doing that.
No, that's fine. It's funny. The reason I mentioned it is because a couple of years ago, I actually spoke with Jerry Jones's, I think his daughter, who was out promoting kind of them becoming a well-connected stadium, and we had a call and just talking about that at a high level. So that's always been on my mind to understand how that connects potentially to this private LTE side.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at XCOM Labs, I believe is the name of the company. There's a few that have like a similar name, so if I'm butchering it, I apologize. But the Sacramento Kings owner also is a stakeholder in this private LTE company, And so there's a lot of, potential there for demoing like a Wi-Fi replacement. But it's really, private LTE has a lot to grow in terms of the go-to-market strategy and how users are going to access the network, and how how the people that are deploying those networks are getting compensated. Is it going to be a price per square foot, like a Wi-Fi system, or is it going to be like a price per user, or do we even see the worst case outcome, which would be price per gigabyte, like
Right.
our existing public telcos? So.
That's great. Well, one topic I wanted to have an opportunity to ask you about is if we pull out here for a second on specifically talking about the offerings, the private LTE side, how when Teal is involved in helping put together IoT solutions, whether it's through partnerships, direct relationships with the clients, where are you seeing the biggest challenges kind of being had? Is it around kind of the planning process? Is there an implementation issues that you've seen a lot of? The architecting side? Like what is from your all side? Where are you seeing kind of the biggest challenges that are worth kind of discussing?
Yeah, I think the issue that has really affected IoT in general is like the complete solution getting deployed, because there's plenty of like API companies that talk about 1 trillion devices connecting with their API, and they raise a ton of venture capital, but they don't address like the connectivity challenges of getting 1 trillion things connected, or like the hardware requirements of getting 1 trillion things connected. There's pretty much any IoT company that raised capital between 2005 and 2015, like they were focused on what is their niche, what is the thing that they're going to do. Because there's like, you could talk to an ag tech company and they could be very good at like monitoring the soil, but they might not be very good at creating a robot that can roll over the soil, right? Like they can design the sensor, but they can't design the vehicle that is delivering that sensor to where it needs to be. And then that vehicle provider might not be very good at addressing the connectivity challenges of where that vehicle lives. This is where like the complexities of an always connected solution really start to stack up. Because like for IoT to work, it has to be ubiquitous or near ubiquitous. And there's plenty of innovation in like the satellite space to try to do that. But for like low power devices, that's not really going to help without a base station.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious to see kind of how things evolve just across the board with all these areas going into 2022.
Yeah.
How active are you all in that planning process? I imagine it's a very big area for you to get involved early on so that people are considering the connectivity piece and the strategy behind choosing the correct connection for the connectivity as early as possible in a solution, rather than just checking a box saying, yeah, we got it, it's working. There's obviously ROI perspective there, which relate to the cost, which relate to performance across the board for any number of use cases. How is that kind of handled, and how do you kind of advise people on how to think about the considerations on the connectivity side before they really get into developing something, whether it's an individual sensor or a complete solution?
Well, obviously, this question is a little bit self-serving in that we're very good at addressing the connectivity issues. If people have hardware issues, we've built a really good ecosystem of partners. And so if they don't know what module to use to connect, if they even are considering other network technologies, if you look at some of our webinars or conversations we've done with like Thingy and Scott Waller, like they're a lower WAN company, and it's about creating this kind of mesh of solutions where the lower WAN works really well with cellular, and cellular works really well with satellite. Like how do we get to ubiquity within IoT to make sure there's not connectivity challenges? But to address your question, we actually, ironically, we would love to be involved as early as possible in planning out and understanding the connectivity challenges of a solution, so that we can prevent somebody from going down a path that wouldn't deliver the full results that they're looking for. There's a car company that we work with that I can't name, but they're they're looking for private LTE included with their public LTE connections. So they want to do private networks at the edge inside of their environments and public networks. When they made the decision to pick a single carrier SIM card, they didn't really think about how that would impact that future design choice. We see more opportunity in people that have already deployed at scale. They thought that getting a Verizon SIM card, not to pick on Verizon, we love all the carriers equally.
But you're talking more just carrier SIM card, like specifically as
when they sign with somebody like Verizon, they think that that's just going to provide national coverage for 100% of their deployments. But the reality is they have to do a site survey. If they're mature enough, they go out and they do a site survey. They see like what's the appropriate network at this site, and they might even physically swap the SIM cards. That can create truck rolls where potentially a tower changes, or they deploy it at a border and the device is switching on and off of a different network that it's not supposed to be on. But when they lock into one solution, like they think that they're getting everything that they need, but they're not necessarily able to cover all of the edge cases. And so complete solutions for IoT are very important. Complete connectivity pictures are also important.
So how do you work with companies who maybe have already gone down that path and selected a carrier-specific SIM card, and then they're running into these problems that you're mentioning now? I assume it's not too late for them. Like, how do you kind of go in and adjust that to kind of optimize them to where they probably should be?
No, it's never too late. And we work kind of hand in fist with the carriers. So the carriers see and bring us into solutions now where there's a really strong need for doing like an eSIM type product. Those are traditionally the projects that I used to work on, right? With GM, it was GM needs eSIM. They can drive a requirement to the carrier, and then they can integrate several carriers into that platform. But the carriers aren't very good at managing or delivering those projects. Teal's kind of solving this issue for them of needing to do that maybe 100 times. Instead, they do it once, and then Teal's able to provide that complete solution to everybody. It's never too late to add additional solutions, because it's pretty plug and play, right? With a plastic eUICC that we offer. But there's definitely a longer cycle to product development and integration of our product if it's using an embedded chip.
One question I have, this is kind of ties into a conversation I had with another guest recently around how buyers of IoT solutions are thinking about the connectivity and looking at it more as something that they just want to have kind of baked into the solution, not have to worry about all the different choices. They kind of view it as it's kind of a given, but obviously it needs to fit their solution and from accurately, making sure you're choosing the right connectivity, as well as how it fits with the overall price and the ROI. How do you all kind of think about connectivity fitting into the solution being put together? Because obviously you all are focused on your area. Sometimes it's either a systems integrator or a platform that's kind of pulling all these pieces together, working with you, the hardware companies, et cetera. How are you seeing the buyers, those that are maybe not as close to it, kind of viewing connectivity? Are they kind of just viewing it as something that is they just assume is going to be taken care of, or do they want to know the details of how the connectivity works, what networks it's on, pricing, all the things broken down? Or like what is the view there or what are you seeing, I guess, from your end?
Yeah, I mean, there's different ideologies. I could probably guess who you're talking about, but there's not really a one-size-fit-all model is our approach to connectivity. We're focused on the solution fit itself, not just enabling access. Like if we just wanted to be the fastest, easiest way for you to access a network, we'd just throw you onto a roaming network. And there's a reason why those don't really stand the test of time. There's a reason why those aren't the most performant or secure networks. We want to tailor and provide the tools for a customer to tailor their connectivity requirements specific to their solution. So think of Teal almost like the Stripe of connectivity. We want to provide API-driven programmability as opposed to here's just something you throw in and you hope it works 10 years from now.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So as we wrap up here, I wanted to ask you two things. One, because this is relatively early in the year, I wanted to get a sense from your all's perspective how you kind of view 2022 in the IoT space. If you want to connect it more to the area that you all focus on, that's great. Just what is the projection? What are you looking forward to? What are you optimistic or excited about happening this year? And we'll start there, and then I'll ask my second one afterwards.
Well, I'm really excited about the actual 5G deployments that carriers are doing, the true 5G, millimeter wave and standalone 5G are going to be big innovative drivers. They're going to lower the cost of connectivity for people that are on solutions that don't take advantage of resources like compute. But they're also going to open up a lot more potential models with AR, VR, and connected car becoming more and more smart every day. So
Sure.
I think it's really funny to watch the whole FAA, FCC thing right now. I don't know if you have an opinion on that, but it's very. Are you aware of that?
Not to probably the detail that you all are. So you can go ahead and kind of share with our audience kind of what's going on there.
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot. Most people that are reporting on this have no understanding of what the channels are and what the frequencies are that are being talked about. There's this fear that true 5G, the millimeter wave stuff and the C-band stuff, is all going to cause interference with FAA approved communications. Like I even think radar is discussed.
Yeah, I saw a big headline, I think yesterday, saying it was just, I don't know, for whatever reason, it seemed to catch my attention more yesterday about the FAA kind of freaking out about what's going to happen with 5G.
Yeah, and this kind of loops into like my optimism about 5G in 2022. Like if we let people that don't know much about 5G like demand and change the conversation and deployment roadmaps, then we won't obviously accomplish as much as we want as a country or even as a as an industry.
Sure.
But the frequencies that they're talking about, there's like a 900 megahertz difference. It's the difference between, I think, 3.5 gigahertz and 4.4 gigahertz. It's approximately one of the solutions. I think the equipment for the FAA is in 4.4, and the equipment for like C-band is in 3.5. And so there's like 900 megahertz that separates the two. The FAA is essentially saying that they don't trust that the FCC certified the devices effectively enough to block interference from a 3.5 gig device connecting or broadcasting and transmitting on a 4.4 gig band, which is a huge gap, right? If you're familiar with Wi-Fi, it's at 2.4 gigs. Plenty of walkie-talkies, plenty of airport radios use equipment in the 2 gigs range. And the military itself has a minimum 100 megahertz gap between communications technologies. So we have a lot of devices that get certified by the FCC, and even a lot of devices that aren't certified by the FCC that use Wi-Fi that don't interfere in other channels. I would not expect a device utilizing C-band to jump into the FAA's protected band. There's no overlap, and there's a huge gap between the two frequency blocks. So it makes no sense. Why do you think they're causing kind of a big stir about it then? I'm struggling to understand, or I guess I'm struggling to find the financial motivation, because surely there is a financial motivation there for somebody.
Okay.
But yeah, I hope we don't, have any. I mean, we also saw the past 2 years like 5G and COVID and like some of the funny links there. So I'm hoping 2022 doesn't have any kind of like scarecrow arguments about 5G, the deployment of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think 5G has been a topic for a number of years now. Pre-COVID of how the promise and the application potential for it, not just on the consumer side but into IoT. So I'm very curious to kind of see how things roll out. I was actually just talking with somebody from ABI about 4G still being the dominant player in cellular IoT because of the infrastructure stuff that's in place. But as 5G comes in, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that how they play together, as well as how it impacts IoT, because there's a lot of use cases in IoT where 5G maybe be a bit of overkill for that kind of connectivity, but there are a lot of value and benefits potentially that it unlocks for
Yeah,
the
it brings
industry.
down costs for everybody. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of
right.
the roaming infrastructure doesn't support 5G. There's no 5G hookups, and most
Right.
cellular IoT providers rely on those roaming backdoors into carrier networks.
Yep.
We're going to launch 5G a lot faster than our competitors. We already have 5G available through our platform, simply because we're natively enrolling inside of networks as opposed to trying to use that roaming backdoor and running it through our infrastructure, which would be very difficult to scale. So
awesome. So last question I want to ask you, so this sort of ties into what we're talking about, but more specifically as it relates to Teal, what should our audience be kind of paying attention to and look out for, and tied on to that, how can they kind of follow up, learn more, and just kind of stay in the know of everything going on over there?
Yeah, so Teal for Enterprise is improving with additional 5G profiles. You'll see some product announcements from us very shortly on other MNO cores that we've integrated. And on Teal for Operators, we really haven't talked or shared a lot about that. It's been in kind of this private demo. I mean, I think we've talked about our work with Intel and GenXCom and a bunch of these folks, and Facebook and the Magma team. We're going to be announcing our Teal for Operators solution, which is for private and public networks, which greatly quickens the product cycle for people to deliver their credentials into devices. At the end of the day, I think if you're a network operator, that's important to you. So we should have an announcement out this week about our consumer eSIM offering. And we're not making people buy a whole platform. We're not charging a recurring service fee. It's a recurring hosting fee. It's a totally different model. No transactional fees. We're very excited about launching that.
Fantastic. We're excited to see that come out. But Robby, as always, it's a pleasure to chat with you. I appreciate you taking the time. Sounds like a lot of exciting things going on planned for 2022. Appreciate you kind of just shedding light on kind of what's happening in the space, areas where people can be thinking a bit better about how they bring in connectivity to their solution and then just generally think about it. So, thanks again. Yeah, thanks again for your time, man.
Yeah, hopefully nobody's allowed to quote me on the exact gigahertz of my spectrum interference, because
we will add that as a disclaimer. Yes,
I was not ready to quote those off the top of my head, but thank you, Ryan. Always a pleasure. Happy 2022.
Yeah, man, you too. Good luck with everything. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, and we're doing a bunch more video this year, so I'd love to have you back for some of the other stuff we're doing.
Love to be on. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, man. All right, everyone. Thanks again for watching that episode of the IoT For All podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel, and be sure to hit the bell notification so you get the latest episodes as soon as they become available. Other than that, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.